The carriage waits in the dark, wheels soaked with dew, lamps muffled with cloth. A woman in a simple veil steps from a hidden door. A man takes the reins, his face turned to shadow. Paris breathes like an animal in sleep. Bells hold their breath. Hooves taste the stones. Somewhere behind the shutters, the city is listening. The queen is running. The man at the box is said to be her secret lover. That is the whisper that will outlive them both. The night will keep its silence, but the streets will not. Before this night there were other nights, rooms heavy with perfume, cards snapping on green cloth, a white hand at the harp, laughter that rang like glass in winter. She was young when he first saw her. He was younger still. He learned her steps in a masked hall. He spoke in the language she loved, the bright French that rolled like music. He followed her through the mirrored galleries where chandeliers fell like frozen rain. He waited on benches of gilded wood, while courtiers drifted by like moths. The rumor began as a thread of smoke, thin and foolish. It thickened into fog and would not lift. Whispers said the queen loved a foreigner. The name was easy to learn. Axel von Fersen, a count from Sweden with a soldier's poise and a dancer's grace. Dark eyes that caught the light, a manner that did not bow hard enough. He came and went. He wore a uniform that set off his height. He listened more than he spoke. He was careful. He loved the theater. He loved the music. He loved, it was said, the queen. Many historians call this palace gossip. Letters speak of loyalty and service. The record shows proximity, devotion, and risk. The heart behind it remains a locked room. Versailles adored stories. Stories clung to brocade like dust. Servants traded them in corridors. Pamphleteers carried them to Paris and made them teeth. The queen had enemies who never slept. They called her Austrian. They called her wasteful. They drew her as a harlot in cheap prints sold at corners. They put strange men in her bed and made her laugh at the king. They threw her into scenes in gardens where the air smelled like cut grass and scandal. She walked in the Trianon and tried to make a small world of peace. She dressed as a shepherdess and touched the heads of cows. She sang to friends and forgot the wait for an hour. The city saw only a mask and wrote its own face beneath. Fersen crossed the ocean with French troops and watched a new republic learn to breathe. He met Washington and wrote of reserve and gravity. Duty pulled him like a tide. Paris pulled him like a fire. He returned with medals and a steadier gaze. He found her older by a shade, the laughter thinner, the rooms colder. She smiled when he entered. She stopped when he bowed. Their names began to drift closer in the talk of those who watched. The queen had given birth to a son. The kingdom had given birth to doubt. Then came a scandal of gems and lies, a necklace heavy as a crown, diamonds set like drops of ice, a cardinal deceived by a grifter and a thief, a forged letter, a midnight garden, a woman who pretended to be the queen and fooled a prince of the church. The jewels never touched Marie Antoinette's skin, yet the story seized her throat. The crowd tasted blood on paper. Prince called her greedy. They called her price beyond pearls. Courts cleared her name. The streets did not. The necklace affair poisoned the well that watered every rumor after. A foreign count at her side, a smile in a box at the opera, a letter passed by a trusted hand. Everything fit the hunger the city carried. Many scholars insist their love affair is uncertain, more shadow than substance. What cannot be disputed is the damage. The queen's reputation bled out in the gutter where the libels were sold. Fersen knew how cold the air had turned. He began to move without sound. He learned the doors that servants used and the turns where guards grew lazy. He brought advice from Sweden, from friends, from the loyal few who still believed in crowns. He kept letters in safe hands, under seals, in codes that needed heat to rise on the page. He begged her to be careful. He begged her to be brave. He begged her not to trust the applause of a hostile city. She told him of loneliness. She told him of the king's soft heart and heavy step. She told him of a family besieged by voices and the slow drift of soldiers out the gate and into the crowd. The palace became a stage where every curtain had a knife behind it. Women marched on Versailles with hate in their throats and hunger in their bellies. The king and queen were driven to Paris. The palace of the Tuileries stared at the river, and waited to become a prison. Guards wore a different color now. The courtiers learned the weight of silence. The queen woke to the sound of drums that came from nowhere and everywhere. She touched her children's hair and stood at a window and saw 1,000 eyes looking up and none of them kind. Fersen set his jaw and planned the unthinkable. He would take them out. He would hijack the city from the inside, not with swords, but with wheels. A carriage wide enough to hide a family. Papers that would pass a hard stare at midnight. Riders placed like beads on a string, each one a promise of an open road. He asked help from those who still remembered the old words. He borrowed money. He begged favors. He thanked the few who would risk their necks. He told himself it was for the crown. He did not allow himself to say it was for her. They dressed for a play, not a war. The queen put the children in clothes that would not call attention. The king took a name that was not his and wore it awkwardly. Fersen climbed to the box in the garments of a driver, coarse and plain. He held the reins and kept his eyes low. He watched patrols pass like wolves that had already fed. He chewed tobacco and checked the wheel with dirty fingers. He spoke in a voice that did not belong to a court. He rolled the small cart through streets that knew his boot better than his face. It was working. The queen slipped through shadow to the street. He lifted the boy. He nodded to the girl. He did not look at her as long as he wanted. The night gave them a path, and then narrowed it. A larger carriage waited beyond the city line. It did not wait long enough. The schedule stumbled. The horses tired. The road threw up ruts like traps. News on wheels outran them. Bells rang in parishes. Men woke with orders in their mouths. At a town called Versailles, the story met a man who knew what a queen looked like when she tried to be small. He had seen her in brightness. He saw her again under a weak lamp and called the past into the present. Soldiers counted the faces in the coach and counted wrong, then counted again and would not be brave. The family was stopped. The road was closed. Fersen did not know until the news hit him like a blow to the chest. He wrote that all was lost. He was not wrong. After Versailles, no rumor was too wild to be bought. The queen was the spider at the center of a web of treason, the papers said. She was the foreign witch who drank the wealth of France. She was the lover of a Swede who guided a king by the hand through the streets like a puppet. Many of these charges were filth. Many were fantasies sold to fear and anger. The truth was simpler and more lethal. A monarchy was drowning. A woman was accused of steering the ship onto rocks when the storm itself had been called by history. Fersen remained close because loyalty is made of bone, not paper. He advised from the edge of danger. He watched the city learn to cut itself free from centuries and call that cut freedom. Trials came like winter. The king walked to a scaffold in January. The queen watched Paris grow quiet afterward, a quiet that vibrated like a wire. She wrote fewer letters. She crossed fewer rooms. She waited for the knock that would not be gentle. Guards learned the pattern of her footsteps. A child cried in sleep and woke to sob with no sound. Fersen could not walk the corridors now. He had to breathe in other countries and pretend that air could fill his lungs. He tried to move pieces on a map that would push armies toward Paris. He found that maps do not obey prayer. There were days when Marie Antoinette remembered the Hall of Mirrors and felt the cold of the floor under her shoes. There were days when she thought of the Trianon and grass beneath a hand laid on the earth. There were hours when she saw the road to the east and the lights of towns that might have let them pass if time had been kinder. She thought of a man who had taken their lives in his hands this one night and held them as long as he could. She may not have called it love. She may have called it rescue. She may have called it devotion. No one alive can say. The record holds her grief like glass holds light. It does not tell us the temperature of the flame. The queen went to the conciergerie. She went to a courtroom where faces were stone. She heard charges that pulled from every gutter that had once printed her name. Adultery was among them, whispered, then shouted, then baked into the list as if it belonged there. She denied what needed denying. She held her head still when the wind of hatred tried to push it down. She walked to a wooden stage on an October morning. The blade was efficient. The crowd exhaled. Paper sellers spread like birds. The city learned how quiet can feel like victory. It would not feel that way for long. Fersen lived on. He suffered in a world that no longer had her voice. He became a ghost who could still be seen. He read letters twice, and then again. He walked through Stockholm under a sky that could not understand the color of Paris. He served a crown that would later turn on him when panic took the shape of a mob. In 1810, he died in the street, beaten in daylight, accused of a crime he did not commit. The manner of his death was a mirror held up to the age that killed the queen. Rage does not ask for proof, it asks for a body. What remains is a scandal that never ends. The queen and the foreigner. The glances in galleries. The letters that can be read two ways. The night of the attempted escape. The city that refused to forget. The necklace affair that stained every silk with suspicion. The blades that close every argument when words fail. Many historians refuse the word affair. They insist on caution. They ask for documents that do not exist. They draw a clean line and call it truth. Others read between the lines and see a pulse. They point to courage when the plan was madness. They count the risks and call them love. Between the two stands a throne, wrecked by time. Listen to how the rumor moves even now. It slips through locked doors. It sits at the foot of a bed and waits for the candle to gutter. It speaks in the voice of a servant, a guard, a coachman, a florist, a girl who washed linens and saw nothing and everything. It tells you that the queen laughed at the king and loved the Swede and trusted diamonds more than her people. Then it tells you she walked to her death with a dignity that turned the air cold. The truth is narrower. The truth is a man and a woman who met in a world built to watch them. A world that sharpened every whisper into a weapon. A world that punished desire whether it lived in the heart or only in the minds of those who sold pamphlets by the bridge. If you stand in the Hall of Mirrors before dawn when the glass is gray and the chandeliers are dark, you can hear the echo of a single set of wheels. Somewhere in that echo is a hand on leather, steady and calm. Somewhere is a woman who will not look back, because looking back makes the world fall apart. Somewhere is a city that will wake and judge. The night of the escape did not prove a love. It proved a loyalty that made enemies call it love, because they could not imagine any other force that strong. Perhaps they were not wrong, perhaps they were not right. History loves a door left open a little. We walk away with a final image. Not the blade, not the mob, not the pamphlets that turned paper into poison. We keep the coach, the turn in the road, the missed signal, the man who does not allow his hands to shake, the queen who trusts him because everything else around her has become a lie. We keep the scandal because scandal is easy to remember. We keep the doubt because doubt is honest. And in the space between, we listen to the silence that follows the closing of a barred gate and the small sound a broken heart makes when it agrees to keep beating. If you want to step deeper into the shadows where crowns create ghosts, subscribe and stay close. The next door we open will not be any brighter. Would you have risked the road for a queen whose name the city already wanted to kill?